Hi guys, the Metal Maniac back again, and in this video, I'm going to be listing off my top 5 favorite albums of 1987. So with that, let's begin. So, at number 5 is The Legacy by Testament. Pretty solid, thrash metal debut. Again, it's not one of the best, but it is definitely, one of the better ones, considering there are some really bad thrash metal debuts, like, the first Megadeth album, and that kind of in that kind of vein. But it's a middle ground. It's not the best, but it's definitely not a bad one. The album's only weakness is the first half has 2 kind of forgettable songs, whereas the second half all great songs. But I still love it. Chuck Billy's vocals are great. Probably one of the highlights about this album is the very technical but catchy guitar riffs and the very melodic guitar solos, as well as some really catchy choruses in a lot of these songs. Over the Wall has a really great sort of fast-paced nature to it, as well as a really melodic solo. Burnt Offerings has a really cool, almost Arabian-type guitar riff. Raging Waters has a really fast-paced but catchy chorus. But if I had to pick, my 3 favorite songs off of here, I'd say First Strike is Deadly, Do or Die, and Alone in the Dark, with maybe, Apocalyptic City being in, sort of a very honorable mention. But yeah, overall, a very solid, not the best, but definitely a solid, thrash metal debut, and I do really enjoy it for the most part, and it's at my number 5 spot. Alright, number 4. Number 4 is another thrash metal album, and that's Taking Over by Overkill. As for, sophomore albums, this is definitely one of the best. It has some amazing songs on it. Deny the Cross is great. Wrecking Crew is probably my favorite song on here. Fear's Name is really good. Use Your Head. Fatal If Swallowed. Power Surge. In Union We Stand. Electroviolence. Yeah, just a really great album. Definitely one of the more, I guess you could say, party type thrash metal albums. This isn't as heavy or sinister as something like Testament or Slayer. It's sort of a fun thrash metal album. It's just really fun to listen to. Most of this album is really, really, really good. The only weaker song on this one is probably Overkill 2, The Nightmare Continues. Not a bad song by any means, but it's kind of weaker when compared to the rest of the songs on the album. But, this album's just a fun listen. I'd say my top 3 favorites on here are Wrecking Crew, Fatal If Swallowed, and Power Surge. But yeah, just a very, very good thrash metal album. Just a fun listen. Alright, number 3. Number 3 is Rock You to Hell by Grim Reaper. Another really fun album. It definitely, compared to the first album, See You in Hell, it has a lot more solid track listing in terms of, them sprinkling out, the best songs, throughout the track listing, rather than having, the best songs mostly be on one side of the album or the other. Yeah, Steve Grimmett's vocals are so much improved on here. His vocals were always good, but I think he really perfected his vocal style on this album, as well as the other band members perfected their talent as well. The guitarists, the bass player, the drummer, all really just perfected their craft by the time this one was recorded. Yeah, Grim Reaper, up until this point, never really had good production on their albums, especially on the first 2. But the production on here is so much better. But yeah, just a really great album. I'd say my top 3 favorite songs on here are Rock You to Hell, When Heaven Comes Down, and Wasted Love. But yeah, just a very, very great album. Also, very underrated album too. But yeah, that's at my number 3 spot. Alright, number 2. Number 2 is Abigail by King Diamond. Talk about amazing sophomore releases. This actually ones up their debut album in every single way. Their debut album, while not bad, it's not a bad album, but it leaves a lot to be desired. Like, there's a few pretty interesting songs on there, but for the most part, it's kind of boring, and it feels too much like Merciful Fate as well. But, you know, this album, their second album, just is a vast improvement. You know, they have their own sound, but at this point, you know, they don't really sound like Merciful Fate anymore. Yeah, just a great album from start to finish. Every single song is amazing. I even love the sort of intro track, Funeral. Yeah, sometimes intro tracks can be either really good or extremely annoying. This one's definitely one of the better intro tracks to an album. I also love the idea of it being a flash forward rather than a flashback. Like, the songs 2 to 4 are all in order, but the first track, Arrival, the intro, takes place, you know, in terms of the story of the album, in terms of the story being told, it takes place at the very end, yet it starts off, you know, the album starts off with it, so I like the idea of a flash forward. But yeah, just a great album. Instrumentation by everyone involved is great. The production's top notch. King Diamond is probably at his best on this album. Although I don't think King Diamond has ever had a bad vocal performance, you know, studio wise or live wise. I think he's always had a fantastic voice. But yeah, just a great album. I'd say it's really hard to pick a top 3, especially on an album where every single song is amazing. But if I had to pick my top 3, I'd say Arrival, Mansion in the Darkness, and the title track, Abigail. But yeah, fantastic album, and it's at my number 2 spot. Alright, my number 1, Scream Bloody Gore by Death. The best death metal album in existence. There's not many other death metal albums that can really, you know, stand next to this one in the greatness. Like, I mean, yeah, there's a few. Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel, the Death Album 3, and some other ones, but very few really rival this one. Again, just like with Abigail by King Diamond, every single song is just amazing and so good. I love the reverb effect. I mean, out of the 80s albums that I have that have, you know, a lot of reverb on them, this is one of the ones that's super drenched in reverb. But like I said, it just adds to the atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, every single song is good. I even like the songs that they reintroduced on this version of the album. 11 and 12, songs 11 and 12, Beyond the Unholy Grave and Land of No Return, were not on the original 1987 release, but even though they were supposed to be, I guess they just didn't have enough room. And then later on, when the Relapse re-releases came out, they added those songs back on. Top 3. Again, very hard to pick just 3. But I'd say my top 3 songs on here are Zombie Ritual, Torn to Pieces, and Evil Dead. But yeah, just an amazing death metal album, and it's my number 1 of 1987. Alright, so that was it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.